I would like to see, like, for instance, last night, right? I think held balls, jump balls, possession arrows. Like, if you want to speed things up, I think those are the things that you take a look at, especially if it gets, and I'm not going to say the less skilled you are, but the less aesthetically pleasing a game is, it typically has things, it typically does centers around those kinds of things.
Sure. The people trying to make the game messier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of, again, some of the things we talked about with the NBA, some of the changes.
I mean, Nebraska wasn't going to get back in that game in the second half.
No.
Without it being allowed. And they made their little run and then
got it down to 16.
And then, if you want to call it that. And then Penn State, answered right back. But there's always this stretch where things kind of get out of – it happened to what was one of my picks? Bama last night against Missouri. When the whistle stops blowing, that's typically when you see teams have the opportunity to get back into a game.
Yeah, because you can find a rhythm.
Right?
It's really hard. We were just talking about it with Ron, right? Things move more smoothly because you have fewer whistles in the wrestling tournament.
And I don't want to go back to lament on wrestling, but I can't express how I'm just a big fan of them accepting new ideas in a sport that has been widely regarded as, well, we've always done it that way.
So
I mean, just wrestlers by nature are very much about.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So I can't. I'm keep going back and forth on this. I think because you're right with wrestlers. You see this in the U.S. with soccer, where people of, I'm going to call them niche sports.
Yeah, I know you were going to go there.
I know people are not going to like that term, but less mainstream sports.
Okay, that's fine.
Are very protective of their thing.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so
the best at gatekeeping.
I think it can be harder to implement changes that would help mainstream, make the sport more mainstream when you have that. I mean, when volleyball changed to rally scoring is probably one of the most prominent examples of it.
Yeah, we've talked about that, yeah. Where
that changed the trajectory of that sport
dramatically.
We're not talking about 13,000 a clip at Supernovas games. I mean, they did 50,000 in 4 matches so far.
I mean, as a big wrestling guy in general, when a guy was up 9-1,
ball game,
it was over.
I know that's ball game,
and
I don't know.
It's oh shoot, man! Anything can
stay
happen.
Dialed.
Yeah, anything can happen.
It's like basketball.
We saw with my guy Pinto.
Yeah, it's like
he's up 9-2, and then all of a sudden it's 10-9 or whatever, 11-9 into one because he almost got near fall, and it's like when that whistle doesn't blow, anything can happen.
It's the same thing as in basketball when they introduced the 3-point line. All of a sudden, like a 15-point lead didn't mean that much anymore.
So why is it when we're watching, and we saw a little bit of it last night, depending on what you were watching, where if you don't get a timeout or a stoppage within the TV timeout and it goes like a minute or two longer, sometimes it makes for a better game.
It can, for a while at least. If it goes much longer than that.
Well, we saw Creighton play to like the 13-minute mark a couple weeks ago.
And it gets a little sloppy sometimes.
Well, I'm sure those guys are gassed.
So that's part of it is I think coaches, especially at that level, condition guys to the TV timeouts.
And I think they coach that way too.
Yes. So they coach to the TV timeout. They condition guys.
Exactly what Mac's going to do at around the 12-minute mark, right?
Yeah, at about 12:30, he's going to get Kalkbrenner out of there.
Yep.
He's going to steal about 3 minutes of rest with Fred King in 1 minute of game time. So when that goes longer than that, it pretty dramatically affects.
But I've never understood, and why I wanted to talk about this as it relates to last night is. Ron said, why would we do something at this level when we don't do it anywhere else? I'm still trying to figure out, and sure, you're going to talk to me about television timeouts and
no, you're going to talk about quarters versus halves.
Why I'm not at the collegiate level?
I'm not going to fight you.
Still playing halves.
I'm not going to fight you. I don't have a good reason.
Just imagine if that game was played at the quarter.
The women went to that a few years ago, and it dramatically improved their game.
You won't see. Oh, it's fantastic.
It dramatically improved the women's college game.
You're not going to see that. You're not going to see what happened in Nebraska happen if you play quarters.
Yeah.
And it's not a Nebraska thing.
In general.
I'm just saying for the betterment of the game.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't have a good reason. There's not a good reason.
It's the only sport.
High school does quarters. NBA does quarters, WNBA does quarters, women's college basketball does quarters. I don't have a good reason. It's the same length of game. Women didn't change the length of their game, but it also changes pretty dramatically the bonus and double bonus.
That's fine.
But I'm saying it's a positive.
You have to evolve.
I'm saying it's a positive thing. Like, it changes how that works, and you don't have.
I don't even like watching halves.
No, it doesn't fit my eye in terms of how the game is supposed to flow. But I do for all the talk about rule changes and things like that, no amount of rule changes was going to help Nebraska hold on to the basketball last night.
Yeah, that was.
The first 10 minutes of that game.
And you know what's funny?
That's
exactly what Penn State does.
Yes. It's like they didn't know.
They turn you over.
It's like Nebraska went in there and didn't know. Like, they did not seem prepared for that.
Where'd you come out on Coach Hoiberg's demeanor? That's who he is, right?
Yeah, he's pretty low-key for the most part. That's why I think the Northwestern thing worked. Because when you have a guy that's low in the one-off, I think.
But we heard him say, "Listen, we cannot do what we did in Evanston."
Yeah.
At State College,
yeah.
We just can't.
And they did exactly.
And they did exactly that.
Maybe worse, honestly. I thought the turnovers were worse. That's one of the. Raleigh Wooster.
How about
couldn't hold on to the ball?
How about the beginning of the
Hoiberg,
game where
too.
They kept throwing it out of? It was not both teams were doing it. There was a stretch.
Mm-hmm.
And it stayed 6-2 or whatever it was early where it's like, oh, that's a turnover. That's a turnover.
Oh, it was horrible to watch.
That's a turnover. Oh, they threw that in the stands. Oh, that one rolled out of bounds. But
the number of live ball turnovers Nebraska
didn't happen. That didn't happen until the jinx during the broadcast. Well, the good thing about it, if you're a Nebraska fan, is these aren't live ball turnovers.
And then the next one is like, there's a live ball
one. Was a live ball turnover.
Yeah. And then a bunch, like 4 in a row were.
And then all of a sudden the lead balloon.
Yeah. It was. But that's as bad as I've seen Nebraska play for a while.
So I get it. Were you equating watching that thing real time to the live ball turnovers and getting like leaky runouts or transition started? Why they gave up so many points in the paint? Because that's a no for Nebraska defensively.
So I think those were two separate things because
I don't know.
Even when they weren't giving live ball turnovers, they still had a free track to the hoop.
You're like Ace Baldwin, a.k.a. Moses?
You
want to call him Aaron? Just
part the C's.
It was crazy.
It was but it wasn't just him.
Oh, I know.
It was everybody on that roster. And I don't know if part of it was just Mia being overextended early and not rotating right, but guys weren't defending at the point of attack. They weren't defending on help. They weren't rotating on help the helper. It was a brutal display of keeping guys out of the paint from on penetration. Like I couldn't believe. The only thing that looked maybe worse was Alabama the last 2 games trying to keep guys out of the paint. It was honestly pretty startling. It was concerning.
Why was there, speaking of turnovers, why was there so many just total misses of the rim, like when they were shooting?
Oh yeah, bad misses.
Yeah.
Well, when Raleigh Wooster thinks it's a good idea to shoot jumpers, like that's probably not going to go well for you.
I can't believe that's where the vitriol lies.
I'm not just okay. So 2 things. I'm not saying it's all his fault.
Yeah.
Because it's certainly not. But also, when a guy that's not a shooter insists on shooting, that's going to drive me crazy. Just a full stop.
And that's what they hadn't done, right?
Right. The shot selection had been a lot better.
It's almost like.
And I get sometimes when Wooster takes one when he's wide open. Right?
You don't cook, but I so bad every time you say his name. I want to ask you what you call the brown liquid that sometimes people cook with.
The Worcestershire sauce?
Oh, the who?
The Worcestershire sauce?
Yeah, wash your sister sauce. What the world?
What do you call it?
A little bit of that W sauce.
That.
You call it the W sauce?
100%. That, right? Beautiful. Well done. Air high five.
Let's go, baby.
I think it depends on what part of the country you're from.
Yeah, W sauce. And now they make it a little thicker, like you can use it as a binder.
Yeah.
I know you don't care, but
like you keep your
but every time I hear
notebooks
you
in your binder.
They needed a little bit of that W sauce last night.
A little bit of that W sauce.
He just dribbles too much.
Have you seen those TikToks where they're like playing the Kendrick Lamar stuff and they're like, oh man, looking for a binder for my, and it's like mustard.
Is that funny, Shane?
Shane liked that
He's
one.
an idiot. I wouldn't encourage him at all. Let me ask you something. And you're not afforded the luxury of revisionist history.
All right, I'll do my best.
Did you think, I'll be honest.
Okay.
And answer as fast as you can.
Okay.
Did you think playing Penn State would be a good matchup for Mia?
No. Yeah. Oh, so full disclosure.
Okay, that's fine. That's real. I'm not going to talk you into it.
No, so here the reason I said no so quickly is a Mia thing, not a Penn State thing. I don't know that anybody's a good matchup for Mia.
The matchup.
If I'm getting into like specific matchup, I didn't think it was the worst.
Okay. Me neither.
In general, so here's why I said no so fast. He's played a lot of minutes lately, and I don't trust him in extended minutes, even over multiple games.
Because I don't want you to just be like, well, we talked about there's at some point there's a threshold where
but that's not just
it's being exposed.
Yeah, and that's not just over one game, though. Like, that's over multiple games. You can be overexposed in a game, or you can be overexposed over the course of a few games.
Yeah.
And if you get a little bit of tape on Mia, I think you can see some places you can exploit him, and that's what Penn State did a really good job of. Now, his teammates on the perimeter didn't help him out a lot either, right? Because it's a lot easier to exploit Mia on some of those help situations when there's almost no resistance at the point of attack. But my quick no was mostly because I thought it was a ticking time bomb for Mia to have a really bad night. I just don't think he's a good enough basketball player to play the minutes he's been playing and have a couple good outings in a row. Again, at some point, you kind of are who you are as a basketball player, and Mia's not a young guy. Like, he is who he is as a basketball player at this point. It would be shocking if the last game or game and a half, if people really liked the way he played, all of a sudden became who he was in the last 10 games of the season.
So you think it's somewhere around the 11, 12-minute mark?
Honestly, if I had my druthers, 8. If I could limit Mia to 8 minutes a game, I'd be thrilled. Andrew Morgan would be about 24 as my top, because that's about the top he's been in his career. If I've got a healthy Burke, then it's probably 20 of Morgan, 20 of Burke, and Mia is a really good teammate on the bench.
So we know Nebraska lost by 17.
Mm-hmm. It was worse than that, but
trailed from wire to wire.
Yep.
Is that a good example? It would last night, with the total being where it was, be a good example to use plus minus, or is plus minus less accurate in a game last night? I'm not setting you up. I'm just
no. So in general, I think plus minus is going to be difficult in a game last night because everybody got their ass kicked.
Okay.
So you're not going to see the differentiation between like, oh, these were really good minutes from this guy and this guy struggled a little bit. Like from the jump, Nebraska got their head beat in. And so most of those, I haven't looked at the plus minus numbers. Okay. Just full disclosure.
So I'm going to ask you something.
My guess would be most of those numbers are going to be pretty ugly.
You lost by 17. You trailed wire to wire.
Yeah. And we're down by 20 plus most of the game.
1, none, 2, 5.
Mm-hmm.
How many guys do you think were in the plus for Nebraska?
So they were plus in the second half as a team. Morgan's minutes mostly came in the second half. If I had to guess, also Bryce Williams had foul trouble in the first. I would guess Bryce and Morgan were plus.
4, 6, 8. 12.
I like your rationale. Bryce was nowhere near being in the plus.
Okay.
He's minus 10.
Okay, not great.
Drew down,
mm-hmm.
My man Andrew Morgan, plus 4.
Is he the only one?
The only one.
I was almost going to say Morgan, but then I remembered Bryce.
The only one.
Yeah.
Now, you have to help me.
Okay.
In a game like that, where you're not really getting stops
at all,
he was kind of vilified a couple of games ago for being a stump defensively in the post, not giving you any paint. We talked about this. I'm not making this up.
No.
That's why, and I say all that to say, staying in the moment as a coach, playing matchups is critical, because you seldom can bottom line it.
Yeah.
Because that really makes no sense.
Sure.
It really makes no sense. One of your guys that has struggled a little bit on the defensive end, and I defended him, and I'm sure because you're an idiot sometimes, but he just likes Andrew Morgan, so he doesn't want to say like that looked like a guy that was coached not to foul, and maybe he's not that bad. Because we went through this whole thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? I'm like, how do we know that was a guy that just couldn't told himself, hey, I can't get in foul trouble. My man TG finally had my back for once. Shout out T-Grad.
That's when I brought up Morgan's minutes, though, that he'd never played.
Yeah, but you talked about
career.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So if you got to play Michigan, a team that is really, really bad, tops in the top 3 and turning the ball over in the Big Ten. 3 games ago, they turned over 14-7 a night. Right? Roddy Gale is now coming off the bench. Well, who knows what they'll do with Gale Jr. By the way, that guy was almost a Blue Jay, so I want you to enjoy that. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
No? Careful what you ask for.
Careful what you wish for.
Although he may be different under different circumstances, but May's a good coach.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
What lineup are you rolling out against Michigan with Wolf and Golden? And they have a propensity to turn it over, and they initiate offense through Wolf.
So I don't – this sounds very defeatist. I don't know how much it matters.
Okay. All right, I'm done.
No, listen. Because
I'm done.
If you're dealing with –
stay in the moment, man. You're trying to win.
No, I get that. But if you're – let's say you start either you're starting Mia or Morgan on Wolf, right? You feel good about either of those guys guarding him?
No, because I don't know about ball screens. But maybe this is like I don't know if this is too techie for radio, but if I'm playing against Golden, you may have to drop some more.
Sure.
On ball screens.
No, I get that. But my question is,
you know what I mean?
If you're dealing with,
and I know they're a no middle team.
If you're dealing with Mia and Morgan against a guy that's pretty dynamic in Wolf, and you go, okay, both these guys have a trouble defending without fouling, like you're gonna end up with the other one anyway.
All right, so let's say you get away from schematics.
Okay.
Like game plan, which they're not gonna do, but let's say you're being a punk. We're losing anyway.
I'm not saying you're losing anyway. I'm saying
how much do you think of it is about? How much of it is effort?
Because
sometimes they look disinterested.
Yeah, I would say more on the perimeter, though. I don't know that I think I've seen an effort issue with Mia or Morgan. I just don't know how good they are.
I'm going to get back to what Caravan said 2 games ago against UConn, or for UConn.
DB, we got an interesting tweet over the break.
Man, are you reading the stream too?
No,
it's in the stream too.
So Sean said, "I wouldn't."
This exact sentiment.
Yeah,
it was just typed in the stream within 2 minutes.
I've heard this about 3 times, and it's all been in the last week, maybe 2.
I just told Sean 3. Did you? I just told Sean 3 times in the last 3 minutes.
So Sean says, I wouldn't say they're disinterested, talking about Nebraska basketball.
He's
pretty dialed in.
Yeah, he's a hoops head.
As much as they
Nebraska.
Just don't like each other. The amount of disgust Gary shows towards some guys that aren't where they're supposed to be is easily in the double digits.
Okay. I'm going to say this out loud and I'm going to move on.
Okay.
Because now they've got me thinking. I said this to you off air I think either over the weekend or here just talking. Who's the guy that I told you they seem like when they talk to him, they seem annoyed? Because he didn't receive the instruction well.
Oh.
And I said, you remember, and Bryce just kept it moving, didn't give the negative body language back. Who was he talking to?
Oh my gosh. I remember this conversation and I'm blanking on it.
It was Mia.
Yep. So I was also
they didn't play the ball screen right.
Yep.
And he allowed him to turn the corner. And Bryce I'm just watching. I can't read lips. I'm watching Bryce share the information.
Like body language.
And Mia just was not having it. So I said, one of the cool things I like about Bryce is he didn't get in the weeds with it.
He just kept it pushing.
Yeah.
So
I wonder what happens, and I'm not that's what I want to say. I'm not blaming this on Mia. So anybody listening, you just keep this in context. But the more you have guys stretched out of their comfort zone, the more the real traits of whomever reveal themselves.
I also think
the more I stretch you,
yes.
the more I'm going to learn about you.
Yes.
So now they have me thinking, like, what are they seeing where this has kind of become a thing? Because you don't have comebacks and you don't hang in there and you don't bounce back from 6-game losing streaks if you don't like playing with one another. So what's the difference?
So, I mean, the difference would be, like you said, guys getting extended into places they probably shouldn't be in. You can like playing with, maybe you like playing with Bear K and Andrew Morgan and Bryce and Juwan, and you like playing with kind of the core group of rotation that was. And Mia was, let's not forget, sort of on the outside left looking in for a while there. Didn't play any minutes in a few games. And then maybe that group likes playing together a lot more. And I do want to say there is a difference. A lot of times these things overlap, but there is a difference between liking a person and liking playing with someone. Because I think I want to make that distinction, because they may like Braxton as a person just fine. They may
now the coach in me is coming. There's I hate to say this, but I'm just keeping it a buck. Like there's players, and you hear me on the phone. You know what I get called to do sometimes during the day. Like I genuinely love kids, right? I'll run to the school at any time. But there are just some kids I don't like.
Sure.
Like there are some kids that I think you'd probably be better off someplace else. But now that you're here, or since you are here, I'm going to compete.
We're going to do our best here
and dial in. But I don't enjoy being around you or coaching you. So,
are there any kids you've liked as people that you didn't like coaching? Because there have been for me. There have been guys that I've liked, genuinely liked as people, couldn't stand coaching them.
Probably yes. I can think of a couple, but I can think of a couple, but I think over time enjoyed. I can only really think of two that I didn't like
coaching,
and that I didn't like as
people.
Yeah.
So the reason I bring that up is
I thought they were counterproductive to everything we were trying to do.
I think the reason I bring that up is I don't know what the relationship is, like what the team dynamics are, right? I don't really have a good grasp on that. But I do think it's possible that you can like a guy, and that allows you to, when he's not playing much or playing limited minutes or playing his role like Mia was, that you can have those big comebacks and you can bounce back from a 6-game losing streak. Because the chemistry in the locker room isn't really bad. It's just, hey, we don't love playing with this guy. We like him as a person, but we don't have to play with him that much, so it's okay.
Were you surprised by Ulyss's early minutes?
For as bad as Wooster was playing, not really.
Okay, so
because I don't know what else you do there.
Do you?
Because Sam wasn't playing very good either.
Do you think? And Sam's going to get a ton of grace just because he's hung in there. Do you think guys get frustrated watching guys do things that they haven't earned the right to do?
That they know they shouldn't be doing? I 100% think that.
Yeah, we got to come back to that, because if that's the case, then maybe some of these guys that are saying this have a point.
And that's
because there are some guys that are getting out of pocket over time.
And that's sort of what I mean by you might like a guy, you may not like playing with a guy.